Could TSM challengers be out the door here pretty soon, along with the rest of challengers? It's a lot going on right now, but I think it's time that we talk some TSM. That is right. Welcome back to another episode of Talking TSM. This time we are talking about something that's a little bit more spread throughout the LCS because it will have an effect on TSM and kind of the future of the organization should they decide to stay. I guess we'll find out here in a few months. At least we're here for the summer. But regardless, moving on, LCS Evie of the Game House reports that all 10 LCS teams have reportedly voted against making NACL mandatory for 2024. However, they are pushing for the rule to be dropped starting with this summer split. Riot is expected to announce their decision on Monday regarding whether teams will still be required to have an NACL team. Now, here's the deal. It is Monday when I'm recording this. It's early in the morning, though, so we're on East Coast over here, if you didn't know. I wouldn't expect an announcement for a bit, to be honest with you. But, you know, it is really interesting to see how people have been responding to this. People are talking about, bringing back relegation and all this other stuff. And, not a single word from the owners on this. And, there's a lot to dive into with this. And, before I really jump into my thoughts on this, I also wanted to show you guys what the Players Association came out and said. Now, they don't tweet a whole lot about these kinds of things, like especially rumors. So, as you can see, their Twitter account is relatively, I don't know, barren at times would be, the way I'd put it. And that's okay. They're a players association. They're not necessarily supposed to be putting out a ton of stuff. But their response to this was that the LCSPA is in ongoing discussions with Riot about the makeup of the NACL in 2024. We do not expect any changes to the NACL, in 2023. And we strongly oppose any such consideration. Further, the LCSPA does not anticipate any significant changes to import rules in North America. Now, these are two really big, monumental statements. So the first thing is that, while the teams may be pushing for changes in 2023, it looks like they're not, the LCS Players Association is not expecting it, and that they strongly oppose any such consideration. Now, that's for 2023. It looks like they're discussing 2024, which means to me, there are already changes that are in the works. What it's going to look like, I don't really know. It is very interesting to me to see how this is going about, and there's some thoughts as to why it's looking in this, direction. Further, the LCSP PA, wow, I don't know why I want to put a CA there, but the LCSPA does not anticipate any significant changes to import rules. Now, there have been another rumor that had been put out there that the LCS and that owners specifically were trying to push for a third import to be allowed, right? So that then the NA players would become the minority instead of the majority. It would theoretically probably make the league a little bit more, I don't know, competitive, I guess would be the word I would put. But, there are already ways to get around this. We've already seen teams that have 0 NA players, players actually from North America on it. So I don't really know that this is a necessary change. But, we'll talk about the import rules at another time. But I think, the important part about this is the NACL. Now, the NACL, I thought, has been getting better. Players, I think, are starting to rotate out of it. Now there were teams this year that clearly were being, I don't know, money driven, I guess would be the way I'd put it. Misers to a certain degree. They are penny pinching, and they were putting, the lowest the lowest players that they could for the cheapest prices that they could on their Challenger League teams. When the idea of having this Challenger League, right, is similar to baseball. I don't know if you guys watch baseball at all. I know I make some references to it, but there's the major league level, then you have tiers under it, right, where there are players who get time to develop in these leagues so that then they are associated with another team and they can be called up to the big leagues, right? The Challengers League is ideally supposed to allow for there to be talent in it to challenge for spots at the highest level, right? And if you are creating a good environment where you can have young, up and coming players, or just players who you think, not even young, but just lesser experienced players, or sometimes even veterans that you think can fill a role, right? Then I think that's what it should be used for. And by getting rid of it, it does create kind of this, I don't know, I guess this schism in my mind, right? This separation where, on one hand, I think it'd be really interesting to see the second level be devoted to other organizations, right? To the Supernovas and the Maryvilles of the world, where you're having these high level. Now, I think Maryville would have to stay in college. I don't know if they would be allowed. I guess they technically are allowed to. I don't know. It's a weird situation with that one. But like, regardless, I think it'd be cool to see them run stuff and to get some Riot money to do so, because I think that would create, some interesting new brands that could theoretically take the spots of some of these LCS brands that maybe aren't needing to be there, right? Ones that would be, happy to sell to the right person. On the other hand, I think for us to have a league that is serious about talent development, that is making the path to the LCS very apparent, and one that could allow for the expansion of the league, which was something I was pushing for years ago, and now it doesn't look like that will be possible for a while. You need to have these teams have their hand in it, right? Because then that's what's going to push these LCS players on these potentially bad teams to either be better or be replaced, right? And while, yes, I know it's not fair to the players, and a lot of people really care about what is fair to the players, you have to look at it this way as well. What is going to help this league grow? What's going to make it interesting, right? What's going to allow for teams like Golden Guardians to go out and compete at MSI and do a pretty stand-up job so far? I mean, they've been great. I know it's been against minor region teams and the LPL squad that Billy Gaming, which they took a game off of them and potentially should have had two, honestly. But regardless, like, these teams are clearly they're in a bind right now financially, and I would personally call on Riot to step in and help to save your league's ability to create and create incentives for them to have young North American players, right? Because like, if they, let's say, had 4 players instead of the 3 required, right, that are North American, right, then that would allow for them to get an extra, I don't know, 150 grand to play their players or something like that, right? Do things like that to where you could create an ecosystem that would, I don't want to use the word trickle down, but it would, go from top to bottom in terms of the effect that it would have on the game itself and on the league. Because what people don't realize is that, like, yes, League of Legends is still being played in North America. It's not the biggest region or anything, but there are no clear paths for players, and most people who play the game maybe don't care or know about the LCS. But if they see, hey, wow, I can make all this money. Wow, I can be famous if I'm pretty good at the league, right? And, oh, hey, here's a very clear path. I start at this level, and if I can make it onto an amateur team, then I can make it up to the NACL, and then if I can play well there, then I can get picked up by an LCS team. That's the idea. That's the ideal scenario that you would want. And in the home region of Riot Games, you want there to be this incentive for people to want to play League of Legends, because there's a path to being a professional, right? That's how baseball and football and basketball and even soccer now, especially, is growing here in North America, right? Like all of those grew due to the ability for people to want to go and play professionally to make money, making it their job, not just being a hobby. And so, I think that we're in a time where the LCS is struggling with this a little bit. And I think for TSM's sake specifically, we're seeing the results of not having young talent on the NACL, level necessarily, right? Like Sven Skaren's just retired. Yes, Hanser took over the role, but how long is he realistically going to be here, right? We didn't have a solid enough mid laner to take over. No pun intended for takeover, but like we had to go out to EU and just pick up a random mid laner. And Ruby's not entirely random, but it feels a little random still, right? Like I was definitely not expecting it. And that's because what should have happened is there was a person ready in our mid lane, right, in NACL that we could have brought up. And I just don't think Doxa has had not only enough time, but I don't know that he's necessarily somebody who would be pushing for an NA slot, right? There's just so many different issues with this. And for TSM fans, like why you guys should care is that this is how we get better. Like I know you guys all want to see all these great players, getting, bought out and brought over. That's great, right? But the reality is that you need 3 North American players, right, to be able to fill the slots and make your team great. And some of the best, LCS talent in the past has had at least 3 really good North American players. Like think about the days that everybody really loved. Hanser, Doublelift, and Biofrost, all North American players. When TSM was at its best, when we were at our pinnacle of talent, right, with Bjergsen and Sven Skaren, or whatever situation you guys may want to look at. Like some of the biggest signings we ever had was I remember when Sven and Mithy came over, everybody was losing their mind. Like, oh my God, they were able to bring them from Europe, right? Because people wanted to come and play here in North America, not just for money. And this system has been broken for so long. And when they, had these teams, it was just for players that would sign for the minimum and they didn't care about it. They didn't see the vision that they needed to. Only teams like C9 really, Evil Geniuses for a little while, Hunter Thieves for a little while, like those are the 3 teams that I can really think of that were really truly developing young talent. I mean, C9 specifically has created so much talent for the LCS over the years because Jack has clearly believed in that path in order to create a great team. And they have consistently, when they've needed to replace players, have been able to find great players at their Challenger League teams. I think Team Liquid is going to see a huge boost from their young talent. I think even Hunter Thieves, with the rumor of Tenacity stepping away, with Someday coming in, like even Busio alone is enough for me to be like, wow, like, they are creating talent, right? They got Sniper coming up too in the top lane, which is why I think they're kind of letting Tenacity go now so that he can start looking for next season. Like there's a lot of things where if you create young talent and you give people an opportunity to play, I think that they can get to that next level. So I don't know. I know that this is probably just me speaking. I know a lot of other people would like any other solution, potentially that I'm wanting to get rid of. And we need to get rid of that franchising is what ruined this league. I mean, it's not. It's the people who have been running things at the top, not understanding, I think, really how to combine franchising with the gaming space in a productive manner. Now, I'm not going to say that I have the solutions for it. I certainly have ideas to how I think it could be fixed, but I don't know, TSM fan. It's weird out there. I don't think that this is a bad thing. I keep tweeting it out there. It's always darkest before the dawn because I think that, we are going through a really rough time, a really rough patch, not just for TSM, but for the LCS in general. And generally, it's when you fail the hardest that you learn the most. Now, unless if you, roll over and die, which I can't imagine that's going to happen, they're going to have to learn and they're going to have to get better because otherwise the league won't exist anymore. So, then League of Legends, Riot Games lose out on a very huge branding opportunity for their video game, which I'm sure would not make them or Tencent or anybody who is at the highest level of management happy. So I can already tell you, I think things will get better. We just got to ride it through this rough patch. I think this will be a pretty rough next year or so. And we'll just have to see how the economy and the gaming economy, specifically the esports economy, recovers. So, yeah, I don't know. Let me know. I know I rambled on a little bit about some of that stuff, but I do think it's important that you guys know it, and I would love to hear your thoughts on what you would do and what you are looking forward to, and what you kind of think should happen with the Challengers League. So, yeah, with that, I'll catch you guys on the next one.